So some very exciting news when it comes to Total War. Rome 2 is actually going to be getting some updates, and it probably applies to a lot of the older historical titles as well, be it Shogun 2, Attila, you name it. So let's get into it. So all of this comes off the back of a show and tell live stream that Creative Assembly did, which I've taken notes on here. Let's get into it. For the most part, it's going to be covering, well, what is this new update strategy they have to existing titles? And particularly when it comes to Rome 2, what do they have in mind when it comes to refreshing the battles, the visuals, and the campaign? So let's get into it here. So as part of this live stream, they went over a new role that exists in Creative Assembly. It's called the Back Catalog Product Owner. And it's an interesting position, and it's going to be headed up by Jack Lusted. So his history, you can see him here, a very dapper gentleman, dresses nicely, but has a long history working in the Total War series, going all the way back to Rome 1 and Medieval 2, being a modder. He was on the Total War Center. He did some design work for the units for Napoleon, and he was actually leading the development in Rome 2's Emperor Edition, game director for Thrones of Britannia. So he's had his hands in the guts of these older Total War titles, which is necessary, obviously, if you're going to come and replumb their depths and seek to improve them. The one caveat to this new title and new directive is actually, he said that he's a team of one. So he's like a solo developer, kind of like a modder, but with the resources of Creative Assembly at his back. So it's not clear if he's going to get help to support him in his endeavors. Presumably he can tap on company resources when it comes to art, sound, other things like that, maybe some expertise, maybe some legworks of junior devs. But yeah, he's basically the main person on this team. So it's a tall order. But essentially, what is his prerogative? Well, the idea is to go back and refresh these older titles. Start with Rome 2. There was a mention of maybe Attila and Shogun 2. And what are they going to be updating? Well, they said this is good news for us. They say it's free updates to the game. So visual fixes, bug fixes, battle, campaign. And this is not paid DLC. And the idea is to go back and bring polish and reinvigorate some of these older titles, do some well-needed and long overdue fixes, at least as far as he can do it as a solo dev member. So that's really exciting for me. I do have some reservations for this because, well, one, how much can he do as a solo dev? Is there a lot of stuff like optimization in Attila that's just beyond his scope that would be great to fix? He just doesn't have the resources to do it. But presumably if he himself can show that there's value in this and then it drives sales to, say, for instance, Rome 2, then maybe he can get more people added to his team, and then eventually this grows into a longer standing sort of group of dev people. Maybe Sophia office could help as well. So yeah, that's mostly it. And then, yeah, now we can go into, well, what are they offering for Rome 2? And actually, one last caveat here is to say that this is mostly going to be aimed at, there's an exclusion here, so it's not for Warhammer and it's not for in-development titles. So that's essentially his prerogative, is basically older historical titles. Okay, getting into Rome 2, what are they going to cover? So they said that the goal here is to work through a progressive sort of like beta phase targeting different areas. So you have beta for Mars, which is going to be battle, beta for Venus, which is visuals, and then beta for Jupiter, which is going to be the campaign. And then after that, they bundle it all up into a Pantheon update. So for the Mars update, there's a lot of details we'll get into shortly, but it's changing things like the impacts of morale, flanking, and terrain, how tired your units are, how things play out in the battle. So a lot of tweaking and dialing of the mechanics to bring a polish that we've seen in later titles, and a lot of stuff that's proven to be true or innovative in new titles. They can now go back and re-add in those lessons learned. They're also doing some bug fixes and things like that, which is great. Venus is visuals, so update to campaign graphics, textures, lighting, the water maps, and then they're going to be doing a sort of a UI reskin inspired by Roman villa paintings, presumably more as we get there. The main fix right now is going to be for Mars battles. Jupiter takes a closer look at a lot of campaign systems, taking the updates they did to Imperator Rome and rolling back some of those or tweaking them or bringing more innovations. So public order, making systems more impactful, re-changing the building trees so that they're longer. The changes are more important, but they branch later on, so it's more organic how you kind of develop your civilization. And they want to make this stuff fun in the late game. So a lot of work there. And then finally, there was here an acknowledgement of, well, what does this all mean for long existing mods that people rely upon? And first, Jack acknowledged that, hey, he was a modder in the past. He understands how disruptive this can be. And he wants to make sure that he communicates these changes well in advance so that the mod team that are there for existing mods can make updates. And he said the goal here is to have one big update for the Pantheon update so that the mods just have to do the update once to reflect all the kind of back-end changes that he's doing. That's great. But he does also recognize that not all modders are going to be active or aware that this is happening. And so for those legacy mods that are not going to get updated, he said that there is going to be a pre-Pantheon version of the game that's going to be always available in case you want to roll back your game to stay compatible with mods as you were before they came in and did these changes. All right, now let's get into the specifics of what they're proposing for Rome 2. I pulled this from both the live stream and actually on the blog space. So let's go over Mars, the battles. So basically what they're saying here is high level for battles. They want battles to be more impactful and to have a lot of the polish of newer titles. So what that means for them is a focus on making flanking, fatigue, and morale more important and more rewarding. At the same time, they do recognize that as they make these tweaks, it could potentially make battles go faster. And so they're making other tweaks to keep the pacing of battles at around 10 to 15 minutes. So yeah, that's all looking good. Now, some specific changes, we'll go ahead and hit these just in order. So one thing that they're bringing in from Attila is going to be critical hits. So this is something where kind of there's like a roll of the dice behind the scenes that could mean that I think you do like 5x the amount of damage. And so they like this added feature from Attila because it means that battles are a lot less predictable, more realistic. A lucky arrow or a lucky stab will see people just drop and die. So they've brought that in. Then they've reworked sort of how armor and damage systems are calculated. This one is worth getting into. They spent a lot of the time showing how this works. Essentially, the old system was like this. So I've added the axes that were missing in the talk. But basically, previously how this worked in simulations is the more armor you had, this is the average damage. You could see that, an early investment in armor had a big change, but then over time, the more armor you stacked, it just had less influence. So what they're trying to do with the new system is to make it more linear so that every incremental investment in armor does have actually practical impacts. They went over some of the details of how this works behind the scenes, but I'm like a visual person, so I went ahead and I broke this out into a diagram. So the new way how armor is calculated and plays into battle determinations is like this. So let's say you look at your unit card and there's an armor of 90. You pull that armor in here, and then you take a roll. And the roll essentially says how much of that armor is actually going to be attributed towards deflecting a blow. So your minimum armor is going to be 50 and 100. It does a roll. So in this case, let's say the system rolled, and I got a value of somewhere in the middle, 73. So that's going to be my armor in this particular attack, what armor I pull for my calculations. Then you say, okay, of this armor, how much is it going to be mitigating the damage done? So the way they do this is a 73 armor, which says out of 100, potential damage, you can take away 73 hits. So the end result is 27%. So they take that 27% and whatever damage you were initially going to do. So let's say you did an armor strike or an attack strike of 100. You now have a damage modifier where it goes all the way down to 27%. So that's how they've reworked things. It's a little bit more streamlined and apparently make things just work more linearly. And this is how you get the desired results. And then when it comes to armor piercing, basically it's the same system, but in this case, you just take this damage modifier and you double it. So basically armor is half as effective as it would be otherwise. So it seems like they're cleaning things up to make it a little bit more intuitive and have better performance. So I like this. I like the fact that they're not scared to show some of the nitty-gritties behind the scene. So what else have they done? So there's some little tweaks in here, pike phalanx, how it behaves, shield armor values. They're now attributing it just to melee defense and missile block chance and not having it actually go towards that armor calculation we just talked about. They're changing some abilities in here. So formed attack apparently was kind of buggy or causing issues. So it looks like they just removed it. And then now what they're doing is they're reworking some of the spears. So they're taking stuff we've seen from later titles like Three Kingdoms to have better charge defense and reflection against cavalry charges. And then even spears, if they're braced, it means that horses will just rear up and refuse to charge. So I've grabbed a little bit of screenshot of what that looked like for Three Kingdoms. I think that sort of performance is a lot more realistic when it comes to history, more intuitive gameplay. Spears have a better role, even if they're cheap spears. If they're sturdy, they can ward off cavalry, really force them to go around the flanks or expose or exploit unbraced units. So that overall is a good change. Again, like I said, they are changing around morale to have increased importance for flanking and terrain. In Rome 2, historically, I think they were having issues where morale really wasn't a factor. If you did all the work to get around behind someone's flank, it really didn't do that much as recent titles. So they're tweaking that so it behaves more like a modern title. So I'm all approving of that. And they've taken a key out of, I think it was Troy and Pharaoh really dialed this in. But basically having a unit's mass really play into their fatigue and how much they can move, so it's much more influential, so that light units can really dart around the flank and get out of the way, and perhaps even outmaneuver you, versus your heavy units can take a punch, take a hit, but they're not going to be chasing anyone anytime soon. So I like that. In addition to that, to drive home more differentiation, they are actually changing unit spacing. So here's a before and after. It's a little bit hard to see, but if you zoom in, basically what they're doing is across the board, they're changing the unit spacing. So your elite heavy units are going to be very tight, very coalesced units. And then the more you get into the medium class and then the light class, the more kind of varied and spread out they are going to be. This is a feature that I think is really good for intuitive understanding of units at a distance. You don't have to bring up the unit card. You can see, oh, this is a light unit. It's spaced out. I can probably take them out, versus, oh, look how disciplined and cohesive this force is. It's probably a heavy unit. So I like that intuitive design, so you don't have to open up the unit card to understand more. So that's looking great. And then some last little important fixes here are going to be changes to how AI deploys its armies. Hopefully this prevents issues where reinforcements were behaving in a wonky way, or you could get AI where it would form its army and then keep reshuffling its units. So stuff like that is really great. And then finally, some well-needed fixes when it comes to ramming issues and naval battles. There's probably a lot more bugs that aren't mentioned here, but they're probably going to tap into the community to see what other bugs you guys want fixed. And then Jack will have to do his best to prioritize and get those covered. One place he could probably do that would be reaching out to the mod team. A lot of important bugs have probably been addressed by mods at this point in time, so hopefully he has a good connection with the modding community. All right, so that's going to be the Mars update. Then we get into the visual update here. So one of the things they said is they're reskinning the UI to be more like painted walls in Roman villas, to be more immersive and have more consistency to the look of buttons and interactive elements. So they did not preview this, but at the bottom here, what I've done is pull up some reference images so we can maybe dream or start to think about what this might look like. So here's what you see in the traditional Rome 2 UI, where yes, it is pretty consistent, but it looks like kind of very basic symbols that are more kind of like painted vase styles, which I kind of like. But if they can push it even further and integrate more about the Roman painting system like this that you see in villas, which is very pops of color, but with a little bit of like kind of tattered texture work on it. If they can put that across the whole UI and just make it more uniform and actually show off that, hey, maybe there's some modern UI elements as well to make it seem like a title that's not locked in the past. So I like that. Other updates they're making as well is basically campaign textures are leveraging the work done for Troy and Pharaoh. Campaign and battle lighting are improved as well. So more visual clarity, night battles are better to play, overall more consistent tone and saturation. Here's an example of this, of the before and after. So this stands out where you can see the ocean has some updates, looks smoother, cleaner. The way the lighting interacts with the terrain just looks like it merges with the terrain a lot better. It's a lot less muddy and maybe stark. So yeah, just better visuals there, and some lighting updates, and yeah, it's overall good. A little bit of polish that might be overlooked by most, but for people who love these titles, it's a welcome change. Another thing they did spot is that in some places, the way the map is painted on the campaign level is different from the battle. So for instance, they were saying that there might be a battle here where you would fight this, and you would think you'd be fighting in grassland or woodland, but when you go to the battle, it's a desert environment. So they're saying that they're reskinning the campaign map to better reflect how the battles actually are. So here is a before and after where it's more accurate now. So great, overall more polish. Then after that, you get into Jupiter, which is probably going to be the more substantial one for the long-term campaign players. Jupiter is all going to be around basically changing your, well, there's a lot of things, but most of it is going to be around how buildings work, their perks, how they unlock. It's a lot of stuff where basically the main thrust of what they're trying to do is essentially make it so that the decisions sort of ramp up over time. And a good way to show this is down here. So for instance, these are the kind of revised tech trees, and they have, or not tech trees, building slots. trees. So they have, for instance, maps here for all the Roman buildings. And the main takeaway is that these chains are now deeper or longer, I guess you could say. So instead of being, maybe a decision of 3 that gets evolved, it could go up to 4 and maybe even 5. So they're extending these chains. And then one thing they've learned from more recent titles is that people prefer if the branching decisions that you have to make are not upfront, but kind of happen progressively over time. So it's really like a tree that expands over time, which makes it a lot easier to ramp up into this and make your decisions later. They're also kind of reconfiguring where the benefits of these systems go. So instead of having something that's a branch is one set of perks exclusively, they're trying to share those. So it's a little bit more nuanced, but basically, we could go into some of the notes here that explain it better, but that's basically it. Extended chains, branch later, and they have the Roman stuff as an example. So again, we'll go over this just as the key details as they've noted it. So let's look specifically at the building chains before we go back to the main list. So here it says they simplified recruitment chains to benefit the player and the AI, keep the number of chains available very similar to the current ones, extend chains. Yeah, we talked about that. Have more branch chains later. So this was a lesson learned from Three Kingdoms. And this I thought was pretty important, that some of these later branches that you have to do are not just decisions, but they're actually going to be tied to the technology unlocks. So they're trying to make technology more impactful in the building tree. So I like that, making systems that otherwise might have fallen off the wayside, try and reinvigorate them, make them have better, deeper connection, more important purpose. So I like the idea of bringing tech decisions into allowing you to unlock certain build chains, or at least better integrating that. Bonuses here, they say, are going to be throughout the chain and not just specific branches. So trying to make it clearer bonuses, and then they say have more impactful resources on your buildings. Let's see, have more impact from resources on building choices. Okay, so yeah, it's been a while. I'm a little rusty on the mechanics of kind of the campaign of Rome, but hopefully this rings true for a lot of people. Again, I recommend checking out the blog post about this to learn more. But yeah, a lot of rebalancing here, looking at victory conditions, late game stuff to make sure that it's still a challenge and it's rewarding gameplay, and that mechanics don't fall off out of relevance. So yeah, that's basically it. That's exciting to me for something that is like quality of life improvements that we'll see for Rome 2. I'm hoping that, again, Jack will have more resources in the future so that we can see more stuff added, like more units, more factions, more stuff like that. But again, the Creative Assembly is not going to be doing this for free until they see some return on investment on this type of thing. So obviously ROI is going to be on driving sales to Rome 2 and its DLC if it's just a more polished game. But then probably an ROI that they're seeing is just rebuilding trust in the community. So again, on both those marks, if we want to see more resources given to Jack, we need to buy stuff if we think it's worth it, and we need to give them positive feedback when they think they've earned it. So that's all great. And then later, this would be an open question to me, which is what games are they going to touch next? Are they going to go to Attila, Shogun 2, older titles? For me, Attila, the main one, is going to be obviously optimization. This is one of the things that it played terribly in a lot of instances. So I'm hoping that this is something that Jack can get the resources around to really improve Attila, because mechanically Attila is great, but it has a lot of optimization issues. And then when it comes to Shogun, this is, by a lot of people's estimation, a really solid game, but still some of its systems are a little antiquated. So for me, that might be, retweaking how the AI works. Diplomacy is somewhat flat in Shogun 2. And then maybe even trying to come up on some twists on the realm divide and maybe some other late game stuff that, I think would change the game. And yeah, there's a lot of new stuff that they've innovated from newer titles that I think obviously, why not retroactively have these lessons learned applied? So yeah, this is all really good stuff. That about covers it for the Rome 2 updates. Stay tuned for my other videos where we'll cover more stuff from the show and tell when it comes to Medieval 3 and Warhammer 40,000. So I will see you guys in the next one, and it's a good time for us historical players and for people who love Rome 2, which I am among them. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.